y'all. Welcome to another edition of our Highline School District Librarians Discuss Digital Media Literacy podcast. I'm Mrs. Meschter, librarian at Chinook Middle School.
I'm Miss Carlson.
Go ahead.
Miss Carlson at Mount Rainier High School.
And I'm Miss SL at Sylvester Middle School.
And today we are going to talk about tips for managing our digital life. Like that came up naturally in our conversation last time. And we're like, we really need to talk about that. Like, how do we manage our digital life? So who's got a great tip or idea or thought?
Just give it up. No, I'm just kidding. And the end. No, because this is why we have a media literacy set of standards and curricula that we're all working hard to make very well known, not just in Highline, but throughout the world. We need it. Digital life is not going anywhere. This is the information age and digital is part of it. But we do need to give ourselves grace and we need to give ourselves breaks. And I've actually heard of a lot of people doing this, and I've done it now and then myself. Take a little media vacation every now and then. Just not so that you're not ill-informed, not that long, not like, I'm going to go spend a year on an island and never look at my phone or a computer again. But I want to. But even sometimes just taking the night off is, good for your brain and your soul.
Well, a lot of the current research coming out says that it does affect your short-term memory and your capacity for moving information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory when you're constantly being inundated with notifications. I just read a New York Times article of a teacher who, while reading Fahrenheit 451 with his students, had them tally how many times they got notifications on their phone every day for each period. And it came out to something like 1,600 times. All for the whole day. So, and obviously that would be, and depending on the number of students, how many times for each student, you'd have to do the math. I don't know how many periods there were in the day or how many students he had, so I can't really speak to that. But you can imagine that if you're being notified all the time, it's one of those little, it's like a disruption in your sleep. You're constantly being distracted. And it's a lot like being in a war zone where you're hearing gunfire going off all the time, except in this case, instead of being fear-inducing, it's pleasure-inducing, but it has the same effect in your mind. And so it's no wonder that our short-term and long-term memories are being affected by this. And
like a lot of people don't know that you can turn off the notifications on your different things. So make sure, so I guess that's part of what I would say is, in addition to taking media breaks, but go in and turn off notifications, only making sure that you're only getting notifications for what you need to. And on your cell phone, you should be able to there's multiple levels of notifications. So sometimes you get like running alerts on your home screen when your screen is locked. Turn those off, like just turn off all the extra notifications. It has the added bonus of saving your battery on your phone. So turn off your notifications. It's good for your brain. There's
also a do not disturb mode on your phone that you can set for hours, a specific span of time. I set mine every night for 9 to 6, 9 in the evening to 6 in the morning, and I do not get disturbed. I also have it set for when I'm driving, because one of the worst distractors for driving is trying to use your cell phone at the same time. It's, it's almost as bad as, either, if I can say it, being high or drunk. I mean, it's like being under the influence of some narcotic. So it can be life-threatening if you're not careful.
No, I mean, I have my oldest child isn't a child anymore. He just got his driver's license, and I was very impressed that the DOL is putting emphasis on things like, no texting, no calling, etc. Because you're right, it's the new danger. And I'm looking at the materials and thinking how vastly different it is from what I had to learn in driver's ed. But there are so many more distractions. But Ms. Carlson, what you were saying about the little disruptions and the little like stimulating of the pleasure zone in your brain reminded me so much of that Star Trek, The Next Generation episode where they all get addicted to the game, that every time they put the little ball through the hoop, they get like a little shot of dopamine or something like that. And I'm like, that is technology in a lot of ways. It's like, I need to see if my comment was liked or read. I need to see if this person responded to my text and all of this. And in some ways, I think we need to retrain ourselves to not devalue that, but value it in a different way. Like,
right.
Well, that was the crux of the social dilemma, is that these app companies and the whole technology industry is creating this intentionally. I mean, not to sound completely conspiratorial, they do know that it has an addictive quality to it. And just because it's not an opioid or some other physical drug that you would ingest or smoke or whatever, doesn't mean it's not any more or less addictive. It's just as bad. And I think that seeing students, especially, but also adults who just can't seem to put their phones away. During the summer, I hardly ever pick up my phone. And I mean, I may be a little bit closer to being a Luddite than most people are, but I still like my technology. Don't get me wrong. I do my iPad. I use it all the time, but you can get information without having to rely on that.
Right.
You know, you can read a book. Gosh, pick up a book. Hello.
What a concept.
Or a newspaper or a magazine. And I know that sounds really old school, but I think part of the technology age is that you should be versatile.
Right.
It shouldn't be that you just eliminate one for the sake of the other. You know, so and I think that some people, younger people, are starting to realize that it is a time suck. It takes a lot of your time. It becomes your master. It really does.
Right. Well, and that you were leading me to my next point was, one of the ways to manage your digital life is to keep a to-do list, but try, like, this has been like a time honored, here's how to manage your time, right? Keep a to-do list. But for so long, people were emphasizing digital to-do lists. But as we know, especially from our like year of pandemic with everything online, when we take it offline and take the time to write down our to-do list physically, like, it changes our brain and it resets our brain and calms those like centers in our brain that are just fired up constantly. So my next step was take an offline to-do list. Like, it's just a very simple one way that you can manage it.
I keep multiple notebooks, and these are my to-do lists, just like this. And I think that, you know, there is something very viscerally satisfying about writing things down and then later putting a check on them that you've actually completed something.
Or writing them down, even ones you've already completed, and putting the check right away.
Well, why not though? But it's still being done. It's still being done. There is a satisfaction to that. And that's good.
There is. And then now there's so many cool like pencils and pens and markers that like you could, oh man, I love a stationery store.
I just love a beautiful stationery store.
I have about 10 fountain pens. I love fountain pens, and I buy special inks for them. And you know, people don't realize just how beautiful some inks can be. I have inks that are very translucent, and they shift color as you write with them. They have a sheen kind of effect to them. And I think that, and maybe, you know, and I don't think I'm the only one, and I'm certainly not the oldest person in the world or the youngest person in the world doing this. I mean, I buy some of these from a family that's online. It's called Goulet Pens, and they're probably in their 30s. I mean, people like this kind of stuff, and it is a niche, obviously, but you know, like you said, if you have the right paper, the right pen, it makes it more enjoyable. It makes it kind of like I don't know. It's like more of an extension of your own mind than just like keyboarding all the time.
Right. And it becomes a form of like, almost like meditating. Like you're just taking yourself down out of the pleasure, reward, stress cycle that is our online information deluge, and just taking some time. And I think, I keep emphasizing take the time as my social media digital literacy strategy. Like, take the time to find different sources. Take the time to slow down and calm your brain. Hashtag take the time. but it's true. Like, we got to slow ourselves down. So.
It is. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, and this also reminds me of like the simple pleasure of letter writing. You know, I mean, I moved 3,000 miles away from almost everyone I know in the world. And I haven't written, I mean, I've written some cards, but, you know, emails faster. But then I realized the whole point of that is to be fast, and stuff that I want to share and go into detail, I'm not sharing and going into detail. And I would if I were writing a letter.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it does make you sort of slow down and have sort of a meditative, more thoughtful approach to the information that you want to get out into the world, or even just get out for your own mental health. You know, the
Well,
letter you're never going to send.
It's interesting that it's sort of counterintuitive, but when you stop using the digital all the time, you actually gain time.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems counterintuitive because we think, like you said, email is faster, but email also and digital technologies put our brains into sort of a quasi dream trance sleep sort of state. And so time just kind of gets sucked away from us without realizing it. But when you put it away, you suddenly realize that you have time. You have time to do things, and you have time to slow down. And we don't necessarily have to always be multitasking, because multitasking is another distraction, you know, and that's what the technology forces us to do. And it's not really how our brains are wired. And it really has a detrimental effect on us. But if we slow down and get away from those technologies, we'll find that we have a lot more time in our day to do the things that we enjoy, rather than just being sort of in a quasi trance state all the time, trying to do multiple things at once. And how enjoyable would it be for somebody to receive a letter that's handwritten, that you cared enough to send them something that is handwritten? I'm not saying I'm guilty of not doing it either, but because it is quicker to do the email thing. But still, there's something about it that sort of, I think, means a lot more. It's more from the heart, I think.
Well, and I think that Lisa, you just touched on the next point that I was going to make, which was stop multitasking. So like start and finish a task. And
how many studies have there been already saying that multitasking is ineffective?
Yep.
It's not, it doesn't exist, actually.
Right. And
the mind can't actually multitask.
No, and we think that we can. We think that we can, you know, just have 4 things going on and doing multiple things online. And
you never do any one of them very, very well, because you're stretching your limits.
Now, I definitely have put on a podcast and done some other work. But that other work that I'm doing is the things that doesn't occupy my like brain or my thinking space. It's like that rote task. But it's generally offline. It's like when I'm painting a room in my house, I'll put on a podcast because it's still thinking and slowing down and allowing me to process. But the start and finishing a task, like it's really easy when you're online to, first I'm going to do something in one program and I'm going to jump over and then I'm going to jump back and you never finish, or you just get so overwhelmed and it's just constantly like, it's not done. So starting and finishing a task online was my next idea. So good job, Ms. Carlson. Way to read my brain.
Yeah. Well, and what goes along with that too is that not just multitasking, but this notion that with the advent of the cell phone and all of this technology, we're always online 24/7. You know, as a person who values her free time, when my job is done, my job is done. I don't want to be on call or have people text me or email me that are from my place of employment or whatever, because that's my time. It's sacred to me. And I think that while I'm not saying that it's not important, it's just that we need to have, we've loosened the guardrails on what constitutes our lifetime and what constitutes our work time because of this type of technology. And kids are being raised now thinking that any time is the right time to have people asking you to do things and working. And that's just not, it infiltrates our private life. And that's very important. If we don't have a private life, we can't experiment with ideas and thinking and doing things that we might not do in public, but need to learn anyway. You know?
That's one of I have a little cheat sheet of tips that and one of them is set boundaries, because we don't anymore. And there's a great Death from Above 1974 song that, I mean, that's the name of the band, called We're Always On. And it even makes a reference to Kurt Cobain and what he would think of all of this. But I mean, it's a fun song, but it's also like very thoughtful that we are always on, and we always are. We're so reachable, which, in some ways is good for family emergencies and stuff, but in some ways it's bad because we don't feel like we have any agency to just be alone for a while and be okay with that. Like somebody's always got to be, within reach or be able to reach us. And I think that's very stress inducing.
It is. And like very simple steps. Take your work email off of your phone. Like set yourself some personal boundaries. And my family, we set, like, at this time, everybody's done with their devices and we go for a walk, because being outside resets our brains. We do
So, I mean, if you have to be connected, use some tools to help you manage the flow of information too. I mean, I know it's very old school, but RSS feeds, if you're a big, blog reader, can help you kind of limit your intake on that. When you get verification, like, I mean, I know it's a pain in the neck to do like dual verification on things, but then whatever bot or in industry, Amazon is what comes to mind, that's trying to access your information can only get to it a certain way, so you don't have to stress about what you're sending out into the world. So use what's available, even if you are writing and you can get one of those programs that doesn't let you click on another tab while you're writing, so you don't cheat and fall down the rabbit hole of, I'm just going to do some fun internet searches. No, just focus on the task at hand, get it done. There's a lot of good stuff out there that can help manage this.
Well, I know a lot of online games, like I play World of Warcraft, and a lot of online games actually will allow both parents and yourself to set timers. You can set timers that will alert you that you've been on the game now 2.5 hours. You might want to take a break, and while I realize that when you're in the midst of, the great battle with the huge dragon, that's not the thing you want to do. I mean, there is something to be said about that. It's about taking agency and ownership of the time that you're spending on these things, because I think that people fail to ask themselves, what am I giving up to be able to take my time and waste it in this way? Because while you might not feel it's a waste, and I certainly don't when I'm playing, but it is. There are a lot of constructive things you could be doing, or enriching yourself in ways that this is not going to enrich yourself in. And when you do it, think to yourself, okay, if I'm willing to just use this time for this and I'm not really enriching myself, is it valuable to me for something, And I think we don't think about that. We just kind of go along with the flow. And because my friends do hip or TikTok, I should do TikTok or whatever,
Well, and then even Netflix has started asking, do you really want to keep binging? Like,
yeah, I know but they wait until like 10 of them are done.
Well, they do. But I mean, even like even the tech companies who have designed their product to stimulate that addiction, to stimulate that like pleasure sensor, have realized, hey, maybe we need to actually put some brakes on this. Like maybe it's not healthy to let people stream 24 hours of a TV show.
Sure, yeah.
Well, also because there's been some public pressure, because we're seeing some of the ill effects. I mean, Facebook, it only started and they barely started cleaning up their act about, information privacy, because a lot of bad things went down, a lot of like,
and still are.
Yeah. So we need to, this is what we talk about in some of the other podcasts too, where we still are our own best watchdogs. And, even in setting the boundaries and holding, technology providers or companies accountable, we got to do that, or they'll enjoy our money no matter what the consequences are to us.
Well, and that's the bottom line. It's all about the Benjamins. I mean, they know that there's money to be made in keeping people online and addicted to it. And the last thing they want is, and it's easier to brand young people than it is to brand older people who have at least had some life experiences. And so, you know, and I don't think we do really any justice either in education when we are constantly telling kids that they have to do things on the screen all the time either.
Well, and we know that we're coming out of this like exceptional year where we've been on screens so much more than even in a normal, like in our normal lives, right? Like the pandemic shifted the way we had to function. And I think that level of tech immersion has caused people to actually realize, oh, we do need to maybe set some boundaries, and maybe we shouldn't require everything to be on a screen. Maybe we should step back and do things differently.
I hope so. I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that yet. And it seems to be normalizing the amount of screen time though.
I'm feeling optimistic. Maybe it's because of the resurgence of like cool writing utensils, like writing implements.
Well, like that might be. Yeah, that might be.
Like I just got some really awesome pens from Japan.
Cool.
In September, and I ordered them online, and now they're available at Target, right? Like some like things are becoming a little bit more mainstream, those sorts of things. So I feel like maybe that's an indicator, but maybe I'm just totally connecting dots that don't
Pilot
exist.
makes some really good fountain pens, by the way. They do. They make some great ones. I've got 3 of them.
I want to see this like translucent ink. I'm very like, whoo.
Yeah, we need a show and tell.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe whenever we can be in real life, that'll be fun. We can try that sometime.
Yes. But, and that's what, way to bring it full circle. I mean, in real life, let's balance our digital with real life. I like having conversations with people instead of just texting and sorry.
Yeah. It's nice. Well, and I think that there is that piece too, that you're kind of raising that issue, is that the more that we are steeped in the digital world, the less we're really interacting with each other. And we are communal creatures by our own brain development. And I don't think that the phone or the cell phone or the tablet or whatever can supersede our need to actually be in contact with real people. And when I see kids that are like sitting next to each other on a park bench and all they're doing is texting and they're not really interacting with each other, I guess it kind of brings out the worried old person in me, like what's happening to our society. And I don't mean to discount that this is how, obviously kids have a different perception of it than we do, but why? They get that perception from adults. And if adults are supporting that, then that's what they'll do. We as adults need to say, wait a minute, if you're with a group of your friends, interact with them. Don't interact with your phone. Put your phone away. Leave it at home or put it in your pocket and turn it off or something, and be with each other. Learn to be with each other, because the results of not being able to, it goes back to game theory. The results of not being able to interact with each other and to be able to negotiate the rules of relationships is going to have a detrimental effect on, we're already seeing it with marriages, with younger people, and on how they raise their children and how they treat the elderly and how they treat one another. There's an old Sequest. Did anybody ever watch Sequest when they were younger?
I watched Sequest.
There was an episode in which Sequest, and it was kind of like after they jumped the shark a little bit.
Oh yeah.
They had gone into the future, and in the future there was like the mother who was like this computer program that was raising 2 human children, the last 2 human children on the face of the earth. One was a boy and one was a girl. And the only way they interacted with each other was through technology. And they did not know how to even get to each other so that they could somehow magically repopulate the species, which was a stretch anyway. But the idea is that without the caretaker, the computer that raised them wanted to go offline, and she needed to have Sequest. She literally brought them there. She wanted to have the Sequest personnel teach them how to interact with each other so that they could save humanity. And the way that we're going, I know you might think, well, we have 8 billion people, what's to go wrong? But You know,
Mm,
technology has a
wrong.
way of being
stuff
very
goes
insidious.
wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it on a much more like sort of surface level, very simple. I'm shocked at the number of people, and you know, they tend to be younger, who you say hi to just in passing and don't respond at all, don't even look at you. And I'm like, I don't want to be in that world where we can't make eye contact and say
Wow.
hello.
That's true. That is true. I had one more thing that I wanted to make sure to bring up, and I can't remember because I got distracted by Sequest and thinking about talking dolphins. So
I love Sequest. I really did.
I'm like, it was like my ultimate sci-fi geekness, like sci-fi plus talking dolphins. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. Do we have any final thoughts that we want to bring up for tips for managing our digital life before we say goodbye for the day?
I would say just be conscientious, be thoughtful, and don't be afraid to put it away. You know, the messages and the notifications will still be there. If you put it away for an hour, you're not going to lose anything. I mean, I know that the whole system seems to be geared toward making you feel like you're going to be left out. And I know that for teenagers, especially, up until you get maybe even through your 20s, you feel like if you don't have it on right now and look at it every time it dings, that somehow you're going to miss out on something. But you're not going to miss out on things. In fact, what you're missing out on by doing it is your life. And I think that if you put it away, you'll find that you gain your life, even if it means sacrificing a few comments by a friend on Instagram or whatever. You'll get to that. And it's not, I think people need to think about really what is it that they truly value. And it's so ephemeral. The whatever digital is it's so ephemeral. It's not, it isn't what really matters. And I think that, was it Einstein that said that what matters, what we think matters, something about what we think matters doesn't count, and what counts matters or doesn't matter, or something like that. The idea that we always put a lot of emphasis on things that really don't matter, but they count. But we don't count the things that really do matter.
No, that's wonderfully put. I on my little cheat sheet, one of the things is decide what's important, and you stated that perfectly. And I think that is like the number one tip. I mean, we didn't even get into all the mental health issues that are being caused by things that are online now. It's like a whole new, it's its own pandemic. Yeah, but I know we need to wrap this up. So yeah, just start thinking about what is really important to you and what connections are.
Yeah, I did remember my point that I wanted to make, which is tied to be conscientious and thoughtful. So it's okay to be bored. And I think that's where a lot of the, like, I got to maximize my time. I'm 2 minutes in line. I got to check Twitter. I got to check Facebook. I got to check whatever. It's okay to be bored and think. And I think we know that when we unplug and have think time, that's where we think and like imagine and create and dream and go big picture, and also take the time to process the things that have happened to us and process our day and process how we are interacting with our friends. And it's okay to be bored, and it's okay to think thoughts. It's okay to put down Twitter.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because I have read recently in several different places, it's kind of synchronous, is that being bored is sort of your brain's way of trying to process all of the information that is bombarding your senses. And so when you're bored, a lot of times what that really means is that your brain is trying to make sense of it and to store it and to process it in some way. And, if you don't like the feeling of being bored, I have to wonder, and this sort of brings me back to the mental health issue, is that I have to wonder that maybe why people spend so much time trying to distract themselves by using the digital media and whatnot is because they don't want to feel that boredom, or even worse, they don't want to have to be inside their own minds and think about things, because it can raise sometimes some ugly things. It can remind you that maybe you're not as happy as you think you are, or it can remind you that maybe you're dealing with issues that you would rather just escape from, and because it's its own form of escapism. And it's a hard thing, because nobody wants to have a moment where they go, oh, maybe I'm not doing this right, or maybe I shouldn't be in this relationship, or maybe I need to really think about what I'm doing with myself when I do these things, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
you
Brene
have to give
Brown.
yourself.
Oh yeah, Brene Brown just posted something about her sobriety 25-year mark, and how now that she's chosen to feel rather than numb, her life is so much richer. And what you were
Yes.
saying reminded me so much of that, Ms. Carlson.
Yeah. And we need to really incorporate our mental health and the psychology behind why we will gravitate toward things that distract us like that. Because maybe there is something, we do have sort of an unconscious that comes out in ways that if we ignore it, it's going to come out regardless. And so hiding behind something like technology is not the answer any more than taking an opioid is.
Right.
And so I think that in all seriousness, we should really consider how we use it as that. Is it really a tool? Do we master it? Do we control it? Or does it do that for us? Does it control us?
On that note, next time we should talk about digital mental health, because we've got a lot to say about that.
Yes.
And I think we need to say goodbye for today.
Okay.
So we'll see all of our people next time, and have a great day.
Weekend.
Weekend.
Friday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sunny. May. Woohoo.